Hello, good morning. This is Joy News Desk. I am Denise Apomaje. We're live on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 125. We're also around the world at myjoyonline.com. Coming up, Ghana Armed Forces says all soldiers injured in recent missile attack on its UN battalion in Lebanon in stable condition. We'll hear from the Ghana Armed Forces on our desk. Also, the 2023 batch of trained teachers still at home, and we asked government and are asking government to post them. We'll also hear from their leaders here on our desk, and on climate evidence, we'll take you to the Kasoa toll booth stretch where drivers are waiting with bated breath for the rainy season. We have all these plus some business updates on our desk. Just stay with us. Welcome. It's an absolute delight to have you back. As rainfall patterns grow heavier and more unpredictable across southern Ghana, commercial drivers who ply the Kasoa toll booth road say every downpour now turns the stretch into a deadly trap. Floodwaters regularly submerge large sections of the road, forcing vehicles to crawl through waterlogged portions, while hidden potholes beneath the surface damage engines. For many who depend on this corridor daily, the rainy season has become a season of anxiety. There's more in today's episode of Climate Evidence.
For Kingsley Yeboah, a commercial driver of 23 years, every dark cloud carries a quiet warning. Last year, as floodwaters gathered near Atala Junction at the Old Barrier, he tried to cross, hoping to beat the rising current. His vehicle stalled midstream. The engine was destroyed. Weeks of income vanished.
So in Sotoa, so yifa bia and I 3 days today cry. And so muna and cars be brave. Etu cars ko say I won't person so bad and eba be year form. One day me park my car essay and I park see office. On your office no. And I park see you. Me park see you no. And I'm just no that time pensioning munayo. And I'm just cause I dey cheap my fat mechanic no I dey be mammy. Me fear na who so no I start here to me buy no. Me car not 10 abedi roadside say. And obi di ni car sanaju no obi di ni car be bom me bumper ni them things na headlight everything in there to tree.
Climate experts say the intensity of rainfall events in coastal Ghana has increased in recent years, overwhelming drainage systems and road infrastructure that were designed for lower volumes of water. But Kingsley's story is not isolated. Drivers say the real danger lies beneath the surface. Floodwaters conceal deep potholes carved into the weakened road.
Yeah, to me, because station in a year, over to me, in sober to me down 50, because to me, Paki can know higher and yet my.
In so Friday, I cast a grain to me into me. It's me tired, they're quite tired. We are there 1 week in Kurana entry, Dibiana traffic.
According to the Ghana Hydrological Authority, while climate change is increasing rainfall intensity, unregulated urban development is compounding the problem. Richard Kofi Ameko says indiscriminate paving of compounds without green spaces reduces natural water absorption, amplifying runoff during extreme weather events.
You know, the flow comes from the hills onto the road. And then looking at the whole area on the hills, there used to be a lot of vegetation. And people are now disturbing the vegetation, removing the vegetation, putting up structures. So it's also a cost to that flooding on the road.
Journeys that should take minutes stretch into hours. This is not simply inconvenience, it is disruption of livelihoods.
You say, one who Portugal said that, and Crawford a woo ha, now Mount Forecast a sewa ha, a drone do not what's her, and I saw the ha, won't mean that. Last time say you was say, and Crawford motors bear said, train on my park, or in accident, or mon summer boo. Just a near to her dear, is very serious.
What's the animal say, and so it will be container, Ebesi, Ako, Fitimoho, Besiako.
According to NATMO, extreme rainfall events are becoming more frequent and intense due to climate change, placing pressure on drainage systems built decades ago for milder conditions. Officials warn that without climate-resilient upgrades, flooding along this corridor will worsen in the coming years.
The situation around Atala and the Tobut area, we call it the mud slides. Because the bonding that holds the particles of the hill together are weakened by the human activity. So anytime there's rainfall, it serves as a lubricant. It lubricates the particles, and then they slide onto the road and block the road.
The Ghana Hydrological Authority is calling for the adoption of a national rainwater harvesting policy, noting that capturing and storing rainwater would reduce pressure on drains during heavy downpours, while also promoting sustainable water management.
As a nation, I believe it's about time for flood mitigation measures. We need to put in rain harvesting policy that will help as a nation, and that will also be added to the planning committees of the local assemblies, that anybody who wants to put up a structure, they should have a rain harvesting system.
This story is brought to you by Joy News in partnership with CDKN Ghana, University of Ghana Center for Climate Change and Sustainability Studies, with funding from CLARE R4I Opportunities Fund.
With Professor Gerald Yiran with the Physical Geography Department of University of Ghana. But before that, let's quickly do the story. Government has lodged a complaint with the United Nations after a missile attack injured Ghanaian troops serving under the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, in southern Lebanon, on March 6. Well, government spokesperson, we'll hear from the government spokesperson, but let's quickly engage Naval Captain Veronica Adjo Ahin. She's Acting Director General of the Department of Public Relations. Thanks so much for joining us. And what are you hearing about the attack on Ghana's UN peacekeepers in Lebanon?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Good morning to your viewers and listeners. There's not been much change. So on 6 March, as a result of the fallout between the Israeli Defense Forces and Hezbollah, the headquarters of the Ghanaian battalion in Lebanon was hit. A number of our soldiers are injured, but as we speak, they are all stable. One of them, which was critically injured, has success under stress, and they are all. As part of my release, I also indicated that some accommodations were burned down. 14 officers lost everything of theirs in the incident. However, the unit those officers have been reset. They've been given accommodation and some rest them. But I like to stress that all they are well and are.
How many? Please continue. How many soldiers in general were injured in this attack?
4.
4, okay.
4 of them were injured.
And you're saying all of them are doing well now?
All are doing well. All are doing well and responding to treatment.
Okay. How about measures put in place to protect Ghana's soldiers on the peacekeeping mission in Lebanon? What are the measures put in place to protect them?
Well, when we go on peacekeeping, we go as part of the UN. And so I believe it is from that angle that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is engaging them. As soldiers, we are deployed between Israel and southern Lebanon. So our government has taken up the issue and is discussing it at that level. But for personnel in the mission, as and when there are challenges, the safest place they could go to be their bunkers. They are also currently not allowed to go to town in soft-steam vehicles. If they have to move in MOAC vehicles. So those are the measures that are in place now.
Okay. How about plans to reinforce or adjust peacekeeping deployment to that particular region?
Well, that question is way beyond me. That will be between our government and the UN. They will be in the position to decide what adjustments will be required going forward as a result of the accident.
Okay, so these 4 injured in the attack, will they be brought back to Ghana to recuperate fully, or they'll be taken care of over there in Lebanon?
I believe they will be managed in Lebanon unless it gets out of hand, and then they will be repatriated home. But as we speak, they are all responding. So there's a likely opportunity, there's a likelihood that they will be treated in the mission.
Okay, and are there any plans from your end or government to support the families of these injured persons? That is, if it impacted their families such heavily?
I think your questions are being directed to the wrong person. If there's going to be any help to the family, that will have to be discussed at the high level, including government level and their family. And I'm not privy to that.
Okay. Okay, all right. So at least we know that all 4 injured are doing well now.
Exactly.
Okay, that's some good news for us. Thank you so much. I've been speaking with Naval Captain Veronica Adjo-Ahin. She's Acting Director General of the Public Affairs Department of the Ghana Armed Forces. Thank you so much for speaking to us. So back to our climate evidence story. We are engaging Professor Gerald A.B. Uran. He's Professor of Physical Geography and Geoinformation Science at the University of Ghana. So on the Kasoa toll booth stretch, what are your key findings of the research that you say is impacting the impact of intensifying rainfall on the Kasoa toll booth road? Please help us appreciate the effect on commercial drivers and also the community. What your key findings are?
Your listeners, the flooding is one of the major impacts of increased rainfall or extreme rainfall events around that area. That particular stretch is a low-lying area, and it's also sandwiched, or it has some hills around it. So when rain falls, the water from the hills rush down to that area, and then it floods the place. So any little or too much rainfall usually will cause flooding there, because all the water from the surrounding areas would have to move towards that end.
Okay, so your research highlights the challenges posed by the flooding on the Kasoa toll booth road, but what do you believe are the primary factors contributing to increased flooding in the area, and really how can they be addressed?
Yeah, the main factor is human settlement. The area, because of its low-lying nature, was designed not to be settled by human beings. So it was, I don't know whether appropriately acquired or not, but it was classified as a Ramsar site, which meant that human activity is not supposed to be there. Also, on top of the mount or the hills, people are doing a lot of buildings on that place, which meant that the vegetation that was there, that served as something like a stop. When the water is coming, the vegetation will stop it and slowly release it down to the soil. And because of that, it's able to stay there a little bit and soak into the soil. Now, when you remove that vegetation, the water goes directly and hit the soils. With the speed at which the water is coming, not much is able to go into the soil. The rest has to run off. Beyond that, when we are building, the roofs that we have created will collect all that water and then drop it to the ground. Within our homes, we also create pavements, all that block water from getting into the soil. So all that excess water has to run out, and it runs to the place. Now, because the place was not properly designed for human settlement before the settlement sprang up in that area, they call the gutters that are there are very narrow, and therefore are not able to contain all the water that is running from these areas into the various channels that are supposed to take this water. So as a result, the water has to run on the roads leading to the area being flooded.
Okay.
So human activities largely blamed for it, and then insufficient or inadequate drainage systems that are supposed to channel the water out are also a major contributory factor.
Okay, so human settlements have affected this. You're talking about roofing and also pavement. So there's nowhere to soak up the excess water. But would a drainage engineering, a proper drainage system solve this problem?
It might solve it in a way that probably it can allow much of the water to go through. But when you go to the lower side of that road, you have what do you call it? The same human settlements there. So you can transfer it from that part, but you still need to go and re-engineer those other areas in order not to flood those residents over there. So road engineering, yes, is a major way to go. That one of the things that usually comes to mind is if we could have that whole stretch that is always flooded like a flyover along that whole stretch. So when the water comes, it goes under the road. That is, but once we cannot, then we need to put culverts or bridges at shorter intervals to allow the water to be able to go through. But when we do that, we need to follow through at the other end to create drainage systems there that will channel the water into the sea.
Okay, so the hydrological authority suggests interventions, of course, such as rainwater harvesting policies. What are other interventions you recommend to mitigate the effect of flooding caused by climate change? Yeah, so in addition to the rainwater harvesting events or activities, we could also look at re-engineering our homes, right? Instead of paving our homes, we put green grass. If we allow grow green grass and all that, when the water falls in the compound, a lot of it will soak into the soil. Very few will be allowed to run out. So if we harvest that from the roof and also create green grass lawns in our compounds, that will reduce it. I remember some time ago I was in Germany, and what they are now doing is that they, along the roads, they plant trees, and around the trees they break the pavement that they had, and then rather put soils and grass there, so that when the water falls, a lot of them would go into the soil, and then very few will run into their drainage systems. So there are so many ways of doing that, apart from the re-engineering of the routes, making sure there are bypasses that are paved. Many of the bypasses over there are not paved, so when the motorists divert to those areas, they find themselves stuck. So if we are able to create very good bypasses, that will also help solve the problem and reduce traffic on the road.
remember that route is an international route, and anything that is happening on it does not only affect the people living around that area, but it affects the West African corridor. So that is something that we need to take seriously and work on.
Thank you so much, Prof. I've been engaging Professor Gerald Yeran. He's with the Physical Geography Department at the University of Ghana. Now, let's move on to some other stories. The Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana is warning that Ghana's food security is at stake following the closure of the Hormuz occasioned by the Iran-US crossfire. Now, let's engage Chief Executive Officer Anthony Morrison, who joins us with details on this. So, we know that urea, sulfur, phosphates, and other chemicals as such, which are also used in manufacturing fertilizer, passes through that canal. Now that it's closed, what does it mean for the supply of fertilizer and other agricultural inputs?
A number of activities are being done, and it's very important that we take some strategies and make sure that we forestall any of these things. For instance, this is not the first time. We have seen the Russian-Ukraine war, we've seen the COVID, we've seen how other forced measures globally have impacted on the agriculture sector. If you read the Chamber's press statement very well, it stated clear what must be achieved and what must be done. For instance, we stated clearly that we cannot be taxing or putting tariffs on fertilizer at this point in time when we are going to have a global situation. This situation is going to be with us for the next 5 to 6 months. It is time we call in for an emergency situational strategy and to respond favorably so that the industry and the good people of Ghana do not take the responsibilities in a manner that they'll have to pay more for food. We are also calling for the removal of the 12% tariff. And in addition to that, we have also put in place that the government must also engage with OCP, that is Morocco, the ministries, and to make sure that we are putting strategies in place to safeguard and guarantee some level of fertilizer for our farmers.
I beg your pardon, the 12% tariff, is it on fertilizer?
That is on fertilizer, yes.
Okay. Please go ahead.
So we are also calling, let me also add some context to this, because as a country, we consume about, when I say consume, it doesn't mean direct consumption, but in terms of the utilization, we're looking at about 554,000 metric tons, almost 600,000 metric tons of fertilizer. This is both NPK and urea, and also not including the organic. Now, this is where we need to come in with our strategic decisions. As a country, our agricultural waste is valued at almost $5 billion. And our food losses and post-harvest losses are above $5 billion as well. This is where we need to look at strategies that must be taken. One, we need to introduce the no waste policy, which is the no agricultural waste policy across the entire segment of the country. Two, we need to make sure that if we can develop a national organic fertilizer policy where we declare each district in each of the regions in the country as an organic district, this will begin to uptake all the waste we are creating, and you will see the enzymes that could be developed by our biotechnologies and the chemists to be able to introduce into the current compounds of the organic fertilizer to break the macro substances into the micro substances for easy uptake by the plant. You know, we need to come up with strategies. Look, if you visit the dam sites, okay, most of them are full. the waste component that could easily be generated that will reduce the cost of chemical imported fertilizer. That will reduce the health issues that we are facing. It's enormous. So it's a time for strategic call. His Excellency the President must make that call. The Minister of Agriculture must make that call. We, the key stakeholders, are ready to support this. The time of force measures are times for us to look at innovative and thinking out of the box. Innovative thinking out of the box is what can survive us in this time. Others are putting money into research. Ghana, we are unable to even put $1 billion into research. This is the time to rally the industry. Let's think, let's come up with solutions, homegrown solutions to drive and spur the next economy, which must be dependent on agriculture.
So as the head of the Agribusiness Chamber, have you engaged any relevant authorities, and what has the response been?
As you are aware, this issue started barely about a week ago. We have tried to engage, to call authorities to avail themselves for engagement.
Does this include the Ministry of Agriculture?
Yes, yes. We are making attempts this week again. Hopefully, we should get a favorable response.
Okay, so you've already reached them earlier. You just haven't received any response yet.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what's your next line of action? Because you mentioned a few things that we could do, but before that, how do we locally preserve what we have to ensure that we are not heavily impacted?
So there are three things we need to do. We're looking at other strategic decisions that must be taken. One, we need to now deploy the National Fertilizer Strategic Reserve Program. Two, we need to also do same for seed, the National Seed Bank, the National Strategic Seed Bank. Because at the end of the day, don't forget, over 80% of our vegetable seeds are from India. Okay? So if we can't get India to move fertilizer to us, then we are in some situation. Three, the last thing we need is the government commitment towards providing the requisite funding, public funding, to finance strategic agriculture in the manner that spurs the transformation narrative of the sector.
All right, thank you so much, Anthony Morrison. He's head of the Agribusiness Chamber of Ghana. Thank you. Now, moving on, the 2023 batch of trained teachers is asking government to, as a matter of urgency, post them. The group says it's been home for 3 years, a situation that's made life unbearable for them. Joining us is Jephthah Nana Kwame Sefa. He's president of TTAG. So you haven't been posted since 2023. What do you want government to do?
All right, thank you for having me. But a little correction, I'm a former president of Teacher Trainees Association of Ghana. I was president in 2023, and thus I represent the 2023 batch of trained teachers who are still waiting to get to the classroom for our service.
Right.
And so, like you mentioned, what we are asking government to do now is that we have been in the College of Education to go through vigorous training. When we mention training, it's not just any experience that we went to have in a tertiary institution. I have always related our matter to that of the police training, the military training, and all other people who go into training. And that's when they come out from training, they are expected to be recruited directly. What we don't see is that what happens to other trainees when they go through their training is that they will just be posted. But for teachers, we still need to beg the government in order to be recruited to go and fill the vacancies that every report that comes out says that we have a number of teachers, we have a number of empty classrooms that need teachers. And that is what we're expecting government, that it's been long since 2023, completing College of Education and going through the mandatory license schedule to have our license and that we stay home for close to 2 years is what we can't bear anymore. And that is a simple thing we're asking the government to do for us.
How many of you have been affected by this?
So for the 2023 group, we number above 16,000. And what's the wrong signal is that the government, through the Ministry of Education, recently addressed this issue. Some were saying that they are going to do a phase postings that is going to see about 6,000 teachers, between 6,000 to 10,000 teachers. That is way below our number for the 2023 group. And what would worsen it is that 2024 year group they've also finished their service and are waiting posting. They come to add to our number that would be beyond 25,000 to about 30,000. But what we understand is that even if it's going to be in phases, all the 2023 teachers should be posted now. We can do 6,000 to 10,000 as a figure or a margin and expect the rest to be down. If you don't take care, they are going to strike it down by the backdoor posting that recently happened, that we saw the government talk about 6,000 recruitment of teachers, which didn't follow the normal routine and schedule. It saw them doing their backdoor posting to supplement their political needs. And that's what we don't want it to happen.
Okay, so how have you been holding up? About 16,000 you mentioned from your year. So how have you been holding up? How do you survive?
So this is a very critical question, a very important one, of course. So what we do now is that we've been waiting, we have not been doing anything. It's very problematic for you to go through the economical landscape you have here in our country and without working to get a salary. People are depending on their parents. They are dependent on other means that are not getting them enough for them to meet life needs.
All right. So have you engaged any relevant authority, Ministry of Education, for example? And if you have, what's the response?
So a number of engagements through different bodies that saw the Ministry of Education addressing this was that they were waiting for financial clearance and that they had to do fiscal discipline as they have been trying to explain on all other issues. But the reality is that fiscal discipline doesn't mean that you should neglect teachers. Fiscal discipline doesn't mean you should neglect empty classrooms without teachers. This is not fiscal discipline. The fiscal discipline will see that we put teachers in right places. We appreciate the educational landscape of our country, knowing that teachers are going to be needed. Teachers are going to play a critical role. And so if you keep on explaining that we have to do fiscal discipline and therefore you cannot recruit all of us together, what happened to the 50,000 teachers that the Minister of Education mentioned somewhere last year that they were going to be recruited? What happens to the automatic posting that the government promised us of? This is real cruelty that we can't take anymore.
So what's your next line of action? You still haven't been recruited?
Yes, our next line of action will be to constantly remind the government of the promises that it made for us. Our next line of action could be also calling all other meaningful bodies to rally behind us, because we are not just calling for what is due us, we are calling for what is due the nation, because like I mentioned, statistics show by Edward, it says that they have over 10,000, 15,000 teachers, empty classrooms, which teachers need to go and fill. So what happens to the student there? We continue to press on the neck of government for government to understand how sensitive this matter is and how important it is for it to get us recruited. Until then, we continue to flood every space we get through the social media to their agencies, their workplace, until we get what is due us.
All right, thank you so much. That's Jephthah Sefa. He's former president of TITAG. Thank you so much for joining us. In other stories, drivers using the Tema motorway are bracing themselves for longer hours on the road as expansion works continue along the busy highway. While the project promises to ease congestion in the long run, motorists say the ongoing construction is already adding several extra minutes to their daily commutes. My colleague Agbogbloshie is there and now reports. Okay, so we know that this is causing some, the Tema motorway is causing some huge traffic, ongoing construction works, and we are trying to engage our colleague Agbogbloshie to help us understand what the situation is. Agbogbloshie, can you kindly tell us what is the current situation at the Tetekwashi interchange?
Traffic by staying longer on the roads to get to where they are going to. And currently we are at the N1, where you can see the traffic starting from somewhere around La Paz down to Jolu, down to this Tetekwashi Road, to Accra Mall, and then to Shiashi, and then those who use Legon to Medina will also have to go. Now, the police have responded swiftly to come and control the free flow of traffic. So, in as much as drivers will have to stay for longer periods on the road, it's not as bad as one may expect, because the police are at vantage points directing this traffic. Now, the other set of people who also have a price to pay for this expansion project are the people who are using the N4 road. That is the people from 37 Accra headed for Medina, Legon or Yarifa, that stretch. Now you can see that the lane has been reduced to 4, and the project manager tells me, the project manager of this particular ongoing project tells me that this is so because it's prudent to maintain the safety on the road, because this bridge deck you are seeing, this T-beam you are seeing will have a bridge deck launched on it, and that is dangerous and just not right to allow the free flow of traffic if that launch is going to happen. It's because boulders could fall, anything could happen, so it is prudent to allow for vehicles to use just 2 lanes instead of the ideal 4 they usually use. So since yesterday, there's been a road diversion. You can see there's a barricade mounted to prevent cars from using this particular lane. And the police are at that point ensuring that the people headed towards Shiashi, Legon to Medina will go for some time. And then he will stop and allow the people coming from 37 to also go. So yes, drivers will have to stay on the street for some time, but the police are really doing well to ensure that the traffic flows freely. Now, the chief superintendent I spoke to earlier tells me that they are going to be deployed until the contractor finally opens the road for cars to pass. And the contractor also tells me that is going to take around 4 to 5 months. So commuters who usually ply this road are urged to probably wake up early and put certain measures in place to be able to beat this traffic, because it's going to go on for a while. All things being equal, in about 5 months, everything will go back to normal. So this particular road is going to be expanded to 10 lanes. So you have a launching bridge deck here, and then on the other side there's going to be another bridge deck launched. And so yes, currently they have stopped because probably the policeman down there has given the go-ahead for those coming from Spintex School. Okay, it's been open now, so I think the cars are moving. I'm looking forward to a halt here so I can speak to certain drivers who I'm sure will be telling me that they now have to stay longer periods on the road before they get to their various destinations. Much later, we'll be talking to hawkers as well. When we came here, they were not really available at this area, but I'm sure they'll be down there, and we'll be going there to engage hawkers. But currently, this is the situation here at the Tetekwashi interchange, where traffic is not flowing freely, but at least it's not chaotic, and it's going to go on for a while.
Hello, it's time for business, and the lady in the red dress, Michelle, joins me in studio. Hello.
Hi, Foma. I thought you were going to mention my name again. Michelle.
Michelle.
And by the way, happy International Women's Day. I didn't see you.
Same to you, same to you.
Yeah. Now, as we're celebrating Ghana Month and celebrating our 69 years of independence, now there's a different call that has, echoed through the streets of Kumasi: freedom from plastic pollution and environmental pollution. Now, the Green Africa Youth Organization, a youth advocacy group, and other environmental activists marched to demand protection and dignity for informal waste workers, warning that unchecked plastic waste is not only choking cities, but also fueling methane emissions and worsening air quality. There's more in this report.
Wielding placards with environmental protection advocacy messages, members of the Green Africa Youth Organization and other eco-volunteer groups hit the streets of Kumasi on the day the country celebrated its 69th Independence Day. Their message was simple but compelling, that Ghana needed to safeguard its environment from being swallowed up by filth and unsanitary conditions. Kumasi, once the lush ever green garden city, now wallows in plastic waste at the market squares, residents, and other places. The unhygienic streets, experts say, is contributing to methane emissions and poor air quality. Agri Samson Osetitu is the regional coordinator for GAIU.
To waste management in our community is that these waste pickers are the most important core of our community cleanliness. But one thing is that people overlook them. People do not pay attention to them. You could go around and you see people just throwing around rubbish, waiting for them to come and pick it up. But today we are here to seek that they are being protected. They are being recognized formally, and so they wouldn't be underpaid. And also people wouldn't just look at them as individuals that pick waste on the environment or that just go around and picking waste. However, as the true heroes of our community that they deem to be. We want to increase the awareness. We want a lot of people to hear about what waste is about, how they could go ahead and manage waste in our community. We want them to see the true essence, all the importance of how clean air is and all of that. So today, our resource is to make sure that people get to hear about us and also they get to understand how waste workers work and why they need to be protected in our environment.
The advocacy walk served also as a platform for the group to demand the recognition, dignity, and social protection of informal waste workers. Mr. Agri highlighted the need for the formalization of waste workers whose responsibilities are to keep the environment clean and healthy for human existence.
So one core part of this whole program, which I mentioned, is establishing the zero waste city model here in the Ashanti region. The entire focus of the project is to manage municipal solid waste, and the core part of it is to creating green jobs in the Ashanti region. Green jobs basically means jobs that contribute positively to the environment. And so we have the waste pickers. We are calling for formalization and protection of waste pickers because we believe it's a good job that individual can take upon themselves and also support the environment. This project also seeks to employ various people in the Matia Recovery Facility, employ urban farmers, and also waste pickers and then ambassadors of our community. So there has a various streams of work that we are actually creating when it comes to this particular job, this particular projects that we are doing here in the Ashanti region.
The campaign held on the theme Just Transition for Communities, Building Prosperity and Restoring Hope coincided with the 69th Independence Anniversary celebration focus. The public awareness was in collaboration with the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly as part of broader efforts to promote community-led zero waste solutions. For Joy News, my name is Emmanuel Bright Kweku.
Still on sanitation, the Accra Metropolitan Assembly has stepped up efforts to rid the city of filth. The National Sanitation Day exercise exposed the growing waste management concerns at the busy Agbogbloshie market enclave. There's more in the story.
Sanitation workers were seen clearing heavily clogged gutters filled with plastics, bottles and other debris at Agbogbloshie. The drains, which run through the busy market area, are often blocked by mixed waste generated by daily trading activities. Residents and traders watched on as workers removed heaps of refuse from the gutters along streets lined with vehicles and stores. The Director of Waste Management at the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, Solomon Noy, is calling on the Ghana Water Company Limited to address the issue of illegal pipe connections in the...
Once Ghana Water steps in to make sure that they don't do these things, we will also be free. We've officially written to them so that at least they can help us solve this.
Meanwhile, the mayor of Accra, Michael Kpapo Aloti, says the assembly will soon distribute segregated waste bins under a pilot program aimed at improving waste separation.
Thanks to former President John Dramani Mahama for National Sanitation Day. Every first Saturday, we will clean markets and homes. All Ghanaians should join in. It benefits you directly. Clean your environment, prevent health. We are introducing segregated waste bins for paper and rubber, a pilot program that will roll out nationwide if for our economy market project is funded. Funds are in the common fund account.
Authorities say sustained sanitation efforts and cooperation from residents will be critical in addressing waste management challenges in communities such as Agbogbloshie. Martha Sewa Boache's report, read to you.
Well, that'll be all for business here on Joy News Desk. But when you head on to myjoyonline.com, For business news, we have stories like the US-Israel-Iran war, import addiction threatens Ghana's economic stability, and that's by an economist. So there's a lot more when you head on to myjoyonline.com.
Well, that's it for business. Thank you for bringing us business, Michelle. That's it for Joy News Desk. And for more news, please do log on to myjoyonline.com. My name is Denise Apomaeje. Have a lovely morning.